Jones from the Rotary. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Larry Barzelai today. Dr. Barzelai has been a long-term Vancouver family physician. He recently closed his family practice and, like me, is working in long-term care. He can now devote more energy to environmental health issues. He is also an assistant professor at the University of British Columbia's Faculty of Medicine. Larry is the chair of the BC branch of the Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment, called CAPE. And this is a physicians' organization that deals with the intersection of health and the environment. CAPE's goal is to educate and, even more importantly, to advocate for better environmental protection. Larry looked familiar to me, and I have read his articles and heard him speak at various physicians' meetings. And I also know Larry from our long-term care work. So locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally, physicians are concerned with the effects of the environment on the health of the planet, which significantly impacts the health of their patients. Larry may talk about this, but I wonder if you knew that the greatest decrease in population mortality, average age of death, infant and maternal mortality occurred in the late 19th and early 20th century, long before antibiotics and other medical miracles of the 20th century arrived. These highly significant decreases were the result of better nutrition, education, and in particular public health measures such as sewage and cleaner air. We all became aware of the importance of public health during COVID, and the backroom physicians of our public health system were seen frequently, often daily, on our TV screens. CAPE reminds us and educates us about the importance of environmental health, and without paying attention to these measures, the planet and our health will take a significant step backwards. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Barzelai.
Thanks very much, Ralph. It's great to see you in person here. And I want to shout out to this concept, the Chilliwack Climate Fair, to Rob and the others that have put this together. I think this is just amazing. And after being here last year, I was ready to sign up right away for subsequent years. I'm very impressed by the way this whole event is being put together. So thank you, people of Chilliwack.
Yeah, hang on just for some reason it doesn't want to.
You need the volume up? Yeah.
I'm going to stop share a second here.
So Ralph mentioned CAPE, the Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment. I mean, we've done a lot of things over the years. Initially, pesticides were a big issue, we dealt with issues, other issues. We still deal with salmon, with old forest trees, but our main issue right now is climate change, which is the major issue for everybody, I would assume. We operate on a local level and a national level to try to affect some changes. CAPE was somewhat effective in getting the government to stop mining and exporting asbestos and coal. Alberta was highly dependent on coal for power until CAPE got quite involved there, and Alberta has dramatically reduced their reliance on coal. Okay, Pat?
Next one?
Yeah.
Oh, come on. Everything worked before, and of course.
The next slide is. Huh?
Yeah, I'm trying to get it to go for some reason. I'm on share screen and it may be causing me issues that way. Okay, why?
So feel free to interject at any time. It's probably best to save most questions and discussion to the end. But if you have any burning questions, go ahead.
Yeah,
any burning comments?
I'll just do stop share. A moment.
All right, computer.
I've got too many screens on here.
Yeah, so it's in presentation mode.
Yeah, there we go. Okay.
Okay, and then just use these buttons.
Yeah, there we go. I
Thank
knew I
you.
was doing something wrong.
That's okay.
Okay, so-
They're not, listen.
So
They're
this
not
is where
easy.
I got my
It should be easy
started
to
a book
hunt.
called Earth by Bill McKibben, who's one of the climate gurus. EAARTH. He's redefined our planet as a place that's dramatically changed now and will ever be changed. Up until the present, you could predict what was going to happen during one season after the other, the gentle rolling changes, but now things have changed dramatically. The changes are nature is harsher, storms are stronger, droughts are more dramatic, temperatures are hotter, and he says the Earth will never be the same, but will the new Earth be somewhat like the previous Earth, or will be dramatically different than the Earth we know? So that's our challenge right now. Next slide. So a quote from the Secretary General of the United Nations that the area of global warming has ended, the area of global boiling has arrived. I mean, a bit dramatic, but I just read that the month of March 2024 was the hottest March in recorded history. So we're going in a certain direction. And at the famous Paris Climate Summit, we talked about limiting temperature increase to 1.5 and saying that 2 degrees would be catastrophic. Now we're talking about 3.5, 4.4 degrees by the end of the century. So we're really going in a dramatically new direction. Next slide, please.
Yeah. There we go. So
Next slide. So there's lots of statistics. This is last year. Some of the dramatic things that happened, like Morocco had a 50-degree centigrade temperature for the first time in its history. City of Yellowknife was evacuated. People in Hawaii died because of forest fires. So because of fires, so dramatic things that are happening in front of us. Next slide, please. And 2021 was the big year here, the wildfires that we know about, flooding that you here in the valley know about more than others, and the heat dome that led to the death of a lot of people in Vancouver and other places. Next, please. So why is climate change a health issue? Thousands of Canadians die prematurely due to air pollution. The number you hear quoted is 2,000 people and about 25,000 people in Canada, and it's more of a problem even in the third world. People in Africa are suffering, diseases are increasing. This is kind of scary. The New England Journal of Medicine reported that there could be 500,000 excess deaths due to climate change by the year 2050. This morning's newspaper had a report from Zambia how climate change is affecting their corn crop, which is their staple food there, and they're predicting a crop of 60% of normal, which could lead to dramatic changes in their health and their way of life. And they contribute nothing to climate change. We do here, and we should share responsibility for what's going on there. Next, please. This is an interesting study I read recently that increased heat leads to increased violence, and there's lots of studies that back this up. So one of the things we're going to have to worry about is we're creating potentially a more violent society just because it's hotter, which is something you don't think about very often. And there's various studies that they quote to back that up. Next, please. Britt Ray is a Canadian living in the States now. She was a CBC columnist for a long time. She talks about some of the dangers of climate change on youth. One study she quotes, next please, is the Lancet, which is the foremost British medical journal, did a study of young people 16 to 25 in 10 different countries And they quoted results that our youth are depressed, they're despairing about their future, and it's so tragic to hear things like that. And one of the things you hear discussed often is people don't want to have children because they don't think they can bring children into this world. And how tragic is that? Has there ever been another generation that doesn't want to have children? I think that's the most dramatic comment of all. Next, please. Medically, we've looked at diseases in various places. The Peace River, where the fracking industry is based, and we do a lot of our studies, showed increased disease in people who live in those areas, low birth weight children and premature children, and increased incidence of certain cancers such as leukemia. And you talk to doctors who work in those areas, and they see all sorts of diseases that are increased, that are hard to quantify because the population is fairly small, but they see evidence of how the fracking industry is really affecting people's health there. Next, please. One thing that we're working on right now is trying to decrease the amount of natural gas that enters homes. Particularly with cooking with natural gas, increases the incidence of childhood asthma. There's also other chemicals such as nitrous oxides and benzene that are released because of natural gas combustion, which we know have harmful effects and carcinogenic effects on people. So one of the things we're trying to do, CAPE is trying to do right now, is trying to prevent the introduction of natural gas into new homes, trying to promote electrification, particularly of cooking and also of heat and hot water. That's a better alternative and less damaging to health and to the environment. Next, please. Can we skip something? Yeah.
You mentioned that.
Okay, the next one, yeah. So what is CAPE doing about it? Yeah, next, please. So one of the things they've done, they've launched an official complaint with the Competition Bureau in Ottawa to see if they can convince the authorities that the fossil fuel companies are just not telling the truth about the harmful effects of fossil fuels, and that they need to be telling us what's really going on. Next, please. This is a campaign that CAPE and some other organizations started a couple of years ago. Fossil fuel ads make us sick. Figure the first step in trying to decrease use of fossil fuels is to stop ads. We take a page from the anti-smoking campaign of 30, 40 years ago, in which stopping smoking ads, which is still going on, is found to be an effective first step in trying to reduce dependence on tobacco and on fossil fuel products. And we have, the CAPE is divided into regional chapters, and we have a fairly active chapter in BC. So this is a bit busy, but Dr. Hale, one of the docs in Kimberley, developed this module for family docs and for health-minded people, trying to show us how to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels. And like the first one, avoid antibiotics in people with coughs and colds, which is a standard medical thing, which doesn't seemingly connect that closely with the environment. But we know the more drugs we give, the more antibiotics, the more side effects, and the more it contributes to climate change, primarily through the production of medications. And so if we can convince doctors to give out less antibiotics and patients to demand less antibiotics, then that should be good for the environment. And then the bottom here, switching patients from inhalers, asthma inhalers, like the conventional Ventolin inhaler that most people use, is found to do as much damage to the environment as driving 300 kilometers in your car. So it's not benign. So we're trying to convince doctors and patients to use other forms of asthma inhalers The prominent ones would be the dry powdered inhalers, which are activated by people breathing in rather than the spray, the inhaler that's damaging to the environment. We try to do lots of things like appearing at climate fairs like this, and farmers markets has been a big thing. Once a month we try to do something at farmers markets in Vancouver and the suburbs, and try to convince doctors in other areas to take this on too. And we try to give out information like we have in the booth downstairs and talk to people about some of these health issues. And there was, we sponsored a Healthy Climate Solutions Fair in Vancouver, displaying lots of renewable energy companies and items, and we had a cooking demonstration by a couple of well-known Vancouver chefs who cooked over an induction stove, an electric stove, and showed how they could cook anything. One of them mainly Chinese, and the other was mainly South Asian. They showed how they could cook anything on an electric stove as good as or better as they could on a gas stove. Protest rallies, Premier Eby's office, and other rallies. Personally, I found it somewhat disappointing that we don't have the rallies like we did a few years ago. Like, people seem to be in a state of complacency regarding the climate. I think people should be out there marching all over the place, and for some reason they don't seem to be nowadays. I don't totally understand why. But
Fatigue.
Sorry? Fatigue, yeah. But we've got to overcome the fatigue and do something about this. This is our future. This is our kids' future. I don't think
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just that's.
Fatigue with what? Fatigue with
I just think for a lot of folks, there's so much information that they don't know what to believe. That it's got to the point where I don't know, and they just kind of bow out.
There's too much information, or that there's too many conflicting.
I work in tech. I actually used to work on things like Groupon, and was a Silicon Valley nerd. And I don't think the social media things have helped as much as they claim that they would. So everybody and his dog can now put a video and stuff, and so you get, every time there's one opinion, there's another opinion, and so fatigue is just people.
We've gone through COVID. COVID stopped people from coming together, rallying, being close together. And there's, I guess, people are still a little bit afraid of being in crowd. So that is one factor, I suppose, that contributes to people not getting out unless large gatherings. That's not the only reason, but yeah, there is complacency, and that yeah, it would be good to see more action out in the streets there.
Yeah. I think sometimes the press is at fault too, because it's always the yin and the yang. It never comes out with, or very rarely comes out with definitive stories, definitive information. It's always the site says this and the other side says that, and I think sometimes it makes it more difficult to really know what's going on. Next, please. So we got some publicity from this campaign we did. We put up this this billboard near the Tsawwassen Ferry Terminal, and this is a website that you can refer to. We have information about natural gas there, and got quite a few articles written based on that. So we're looking for other ways to do things like this and get some publicity. With the provincial election coming up, we're thinking of other ways we can get the message out to. Next, please. One thing I've been proud of is supporting the Wet'suwet'en in northwestern BC. These are the people that are trying to stop the Canada natural gas pipeline, and they're doing an amazing job. the river, they talk about the river, they can drink the water out of, they can catch salmon out of, and they can go hunting in their territories, and they want to preserve this. Next slide, please. But fossil fuel companies have different ideas. This is what they built, using a lot of police to reinforce this, to oppose the residents of the Wet'suwet'en territories and force this pipeline through their territory at this point underneath the river. So that's been quite sad to see these really strong, vibrant people who love off their land to be subjected to this. Next, please. So what are some solutions? So on a personal level, fly less, drive less, active transportation and public transportation is always better than driving your own car. We talked about electrification, heat pumps. Eat more plant-based foods. I'd imagine the beef industry is probably important here, so it might be a tough argument to make, but it's important. Next, please. And this is probably one of the more challenging things. Jason Hickel has come up with statements that we've got to just consume less. The major problem with the climate is we're consuming enough products for 2.5 worlds. The world can't sustain the amount of items that we're producing and using. So just a general reduction in consumption has to be part of this, and that's probably one of the hardest things for people to absorb. Next, please. And on a group level, things like this fair are just amazing. Green teams, I think, are a great idea. I think every workplace should have a green team. Should have a group of people that are meeting to try to decide what they can do within their own environment, within their own work environment, to make it a better environment in general. A lot of nursing stations and nursing departments and hospitals have this, and that's productive. But I think one of the things we've got to understand is everybody's got to do something. This is not something we can leave to the politicians. Next, please. Public engagement that Kate does. If people listen to CBC, Melissa Lemmer, the Cape's president, often appears on the morning show on CBC. I don't know if you get the same program here, but she's been quite prolific in speaking. Next, please. And the government level, next, please. So there's I guess the yin and the yang of the federal government. I was proud of Trudeau that he's standing his ground on the carbon tax. Almost every premier seems to be objecting to the carbon tax, and he's sticking to his guns with that. And that's been shown to be one of the more effective things in reducing fossil fuel use. And on the other hand, they're still giving subsidies to oil and gas companies, or the big projects, Trans Mountain Pipeline that's being almost completed now to carry bitumen from Alberta to Burnaby, and the Bay du Nord project. It was kind of sad. Stephen Guilbeault, who has just incredible environmental credentials, sort of announcing this great big underwater drilling project off the coast of Newfoundland. Next, please. Some of the provincial premiers are just cuckoo, like Danielle Smith in Alberta. We can't have any more renewable energy projects. We've got to support the fossil fuel industry as much as we can. She fights the federal government tooth and nail. And the green belt controversy in Ontario that fortunately is not going to be destroyed as much as it was planned due to other political considerations. One interesting thing we're doing here is BC has a Clean BC document and module that gives direction for people. And energy step codes, this is one thing that we've been doing, is going from city to city, trying to convince cities to to reduce their reliance on natural gas and because the province itself by 2030 it has a plan to stop natural gas use in all new homes and to
What, sorry, what
electrification.
year did you say?
2030.
2030.
2030. So one of the things we're doing right now is trying to convince municipalities to do it before 2030, to electrify and to reduce the installation of natural gas heating and hot water and cooking into new homes. And we've had a fair bit of success in the Lower Mainland of Vancouver Island of getting municipalities to take action, and that's one area where people can feel more comfortable working on a municipal level often than on a provincial or federal level. Next, please. But this is where we're really going in the wrong direction. One fossil fuel project, one fracking project after another is being approved by the provincial government. And we had thought that the present government was more environmentally concerned. There are a certain number of environmentalists within the government, but they don't seem to be stopping any of these future projects. And like BC has no chance of achieving its climate targets as one fracking project after another is approved. Next, please. One thing we want to work on is there's a union of BC municipalities where municipalities get together once a year, and it's highly sponsored by the fossil fuel company. So one of our projects is to see what we can do about that. We made some inroads into the educational system. One of our docs in Salmon Arm was concerned her children were bringing home all these lesson plans designed by Fortis, and all with a bias to it. And we question whether Fortis should be writing educational modules for the Board of Education at all. And I think we convinced the Minister of Education to try, and other people there, to try to reduce this exposure. Next, please. This is what we met at Vancouver City Hall to talk about electrification rather than natural gas. It was interesting. We did our presentation there. We got accused of being anti-immigrant. We talked about something we didn't expect, that a couple of the councillors, especially Chinese origin, said that you can't stop natural gas hookups into homes because cooking over an open flame is a thing that Chinese people do and other people from other countries do. And if you're going to get rid of that, then you're going to destroy ethnic communities and ethnic relationships. Obviously blown a bit out of proportion, but one of the counselors said that her mother-in-law is Chinese. She's not, and the only way she can communicate with her is when they cook together over an open flame. So we went in there with an environmental agenda, and then came out there with accused of being racist or anti-immigrant. So it's just a bizarre encounter. But the person on the right, Lenny Joe, was one of the people objecting strongly to our perspective, and he's turned around, and now he's helping us. We have a fracking document that he's helped us translate into Chinese. So with a bit of persuasion and a bit of education, people can change. Next, please. And there's health benefits to eating less meat. And some of the statistics I see about beef and cattle farming are disconcerting. That so much of the planet is taken up by cattle grazing and raising food for cattle. I think I've seen figures that a third of the arable land in the world is taken up to grow beef. I find myself difficult to believe statistics like that, but it's a big issue. Next, please. In public transportation, this is an interesting Japanese study that showed that people that take public transportation rather than drive their car are healthier from so many different aspects: the blood pressure, diabetes, and their weight. So you see, I mean, active transportation is even better. It's riding your bicycle or walking, but even public transportation is much better than taking your car, because you're walking to the bus station, you're walking from the bus station, and you're not just sitting in your car and doing things. I mean, it's easy to say as I'm driving my car all over the place and driving to come here today, but these directions are something we need to think about. Next, please. And Canada's doing a lousy job. You could see up until a few years ago that our greenhouse gas emissions have not decreased at all. And I don't think anything's changed. A slight dip, I think, because of COVID, but other than that, we're not making any difference. Next, please. Now, even the United States has done a better job than us. The big bad evil United States has reduced their greenhouse gas output by 7%. Britain, the UK has done an amazing job, 38%. So the US is still one of the largest greenhouse gas emitters, and we're up there. Us and Australia and the US are tied for the worst greenhouse gas emitters. So we think that we're doing a good job, but as a country, we're really not. Next, please. No, like there are some positive examples, like Iceland. Next, please.
Yeah.
So, like I said before, I think everybody needs to do something. Like we had, like a radiologist, for example. One of our radiologists has got programs introduced within the radiology department to do less X-rays and to reduce the energy that's used by MRI and CT scanners. So people are doing their bit. Some of the pharmacists are looking into less environmentally damaging medication and promoting ways that we can reduce the medication that people take and reduce environmental effects. Next, please. So that was the end of what I planned. There's the section here on adaptation. That a few slides that I've got on that. If people want to move forward, we could go into that.
Yeah, we've got about 20 minutes, Larry, but we're going to need some time for questions at the end. So.
Okay.
Solutions.
What
do we do? That's what I want to know.
Okay, so just a bit about adaptation. I gave one talk on that was interesting. So protection against floods, which is what you got to think about in this area. So be prepared to sacrifice the basement. That's an interesting comment. Build homes away from rivers if you can do that. Next, please. So this is something I read, that how important the roof is. That stabilizing the roof is one of the more important things you can do to preserve your house. Because once the roof goes, then that leads to the destruction of the rest of the house. So in big floods and winds, however, you can tamp down the roof to make it more secure is important. Next, please. These some regulations that come into effect in California, which prescribes the amount of vegetation you can have close to houses. And nothing within zone 1 and maybe some within zone 2, but you have to be very careful how much vegetation there is, mainly to protect yourself against fires. Next, please. The undergrowth is important. I guess on the right it shows when there's almost no undergrowth, on the left when there's undergrowth, showing how the flames start with the undergrowth and spread up to the trees, and trees will burn eventually. It'll jump to your house. So these things that people can do to protect themselves in their house. Next, please. Effects of extreme heat. We've got handouts on this downstairs at our booth if people want more information about this. But basic things like drinking more water and air conditioning, not working outside so much in the heat, a lot of basic information here. Next, please. How to survive a heat wave, same idea. Next, please. And you can see that Vancouver, the health advisories are going up seemingly year to year, decade to decade, how the air quality is getting worse. Next, please. There's various ways of counteracting allergies. Oh, sorry. Sure.
Go back a slide.
Yeah, can you go back to slide? Yeah, that one?
Can you give any insight into the rise in ground level ozone?
Vancouver, I'm not sure. Just industrialization. I would guess ground level ozone is produced by cars, by a lot of fossil fuel emissions. I don't have the exact information on that though. I just know in general the ground level ozone is definitely a major factor in lung disease and is increasing.
Yeah, it's rapidly reducing.
Yeah. I mean, to be distinguished, I always have trouble distinguishing that between the high ozone levels that we were dealing with years ago and trying to close the hole in the atmosphere.
Whatever happened to that?
We basically solved that.
Yeah.
It reduced the fluorocarbons and other
Chlorofluorocarbons,
things,
yeah.
and it made a big difference. That hole is definitely closing. So I guess that's what you got to think of. It's not all hopeless. There have been successes, like acid rain that was destroying a lot of the Great Lakes by scrubbing carbon emissions around the Great Lakes. That's made a dramatic difference. The ozone layer has closed up, and there have been some successes. So you got to hope we can have more of them.
But I think in Vancouver, there is a lot of action. There's meetups. And one of the things I want to mention is that I'm in the booth next to me with books, but I have the email addresses of every MP, every MLA, and every city councilor on Dell spreadsheets. And if anybody wants them emailed to them, because just with one click, they connect with all of the MLAs, all of the MPs, whichever group you're interested in. And I think it makes a real difference.
Yeah, I like your idea. I like your example of New York. I mean, can't we all do some project like that that's going to make a difference?
Yeah.
I also want to mention that our Rotary Club has been very active in developing education kits for the school district here. So in other words, we have climate change books and projects to teach the elementary school kids, which is being used in our school district. And at the moment, it's being made for grade 7 to 12 that will be used. So our school, because of people here, have put together educational kits to teach all the kids, and it's going across the province.
Oh, that's dynamite. So better than Fortis designing educational modules.
Yeah, a bit.
I think we should move into questions
Yeah.
now, Larry. Let's do
Okay,
that.
so slideshow is ended.
Let me just, I have to thank Larry.
So guess what? You get to clap again because it's my privilege to thank Larry for his talk, which gave us the big picture and was very stimulating. My wife made me get rid of the gas stove. When I'm a cook, I love to cook on the gas stove, and about 3 years ago she made me get rid of it just because we were doing a kitchen reno. I want my gas stove, but I got used to the electric one, so it looks like I did the right thing. Anyway.
Did you get induction?
I have no idea.
You'll know if you have inductions.
No, it's
Inductions
not.
are
We had to
awesome.
change all the pots, and
Yeah, that's induction.
Yeah, well, we didn't because I got used to my pots. But anyway, so I'd like you to join me in thanking Larry for his talk. I'm going to give myself the privilege of the first questions and comments, Larry. There's a sort of double-edged sword here with plants and trees around your house. I live in a small rancher. We have air conditioning, but we very rarely turn it on because I've grown up all the trees and plants alongside the windows. And this was the Victorian concept of air conditioning, where you trap cold air under the plants. You have the windows open, hot air rises, it drags the cold air through. And of course the Victorian concept of the cupola, you don't have that, but that sort of hole in your roof with a sort of shield over it, that was how they kept cool, and they kept cool by having a kitchen outside the house, and so on. So that's something to think about. So we have a question right there.
Actually, I just wanted to follow up on Ms. Faith's discussion about celebrating the wins. There's a couple of wins that we should be celebrating and amplifying. One of them is buying electric cars. The Model Y is now the most popular new car of any car models. And that's something that anybody can do and should do, because the gas cars are going to lose their value in a couple of years and will basically be scrapped. And the other thing is that there's tons of plant-based food options out there now that I've never seen before. And there's really no compelling reason to eat meat products anymore.
Yeah, there was a couple of good points. Sorry, you finished? So regarding electric cars, they're good, but they still have a carry a fair environmental impact. It's maybe over the life of the car, maybe half of what an internal combustion engine is, but it's not a panacea. It's a step in the right direction.
It's a tough problem.
Yeah.
The problem is the batteries.
Yeah, the batteries
We're getting there.
That's changing very quickly.
So we got to be conscious
I'm an
that
expert on that,
if
so.
you trade your gas guzzler into an electric car, it might
I'm
be
waiting for
positive, but there are other things you can do too. Gentleman behind.
Really wide-ranging presentation. You squeezed it all into 45 minutes. Amazing. Something that I've noticed in the last 20 years is we have fewer people who deny climate change, more people who are skeptical of climate change, perhaps. A question touching on LNG. You touched on LNG, and more and more LNG being developed. The United States has decided to, let's say, manipulate the markets by decreasing their export of LNG, and we haven't decided to do that. And our major exporter, Fortis, has decided through its program of informing the public to let us know that, look, we have to develop LNG because the world needs it, because without our LNG, they'll burn coal. So I have yet to come up with a really good response to that. Do you, or does anybody in our audience have a good response? Obviously, that right answer is just stop burning fossil gas, just stop using coal. But in the absence of just not burning it anymore, what's the correct response to that?
Well, yeah, good point. The point of our LNG industry would be to send it to the Far East, where companies figure that it's needed, and there must be some validity to their concerns, to their plans, because they're investing billions of dollars in this. But the right answer has got to be is we should develop our renewable energy resources and export those to the South Asian company or the Asian companies that might be interested in our LNG. And apparently some of these countries themselves, from what I hear, are less interested in LNG than we might think.